Next session says, Al-Qira'atu fi thalath al-Witr. What should the Muslim recite and the 3 raka'at of Witr? Not what you have to recite, but what's the sunnah to recite. ومن السنة أن يقرأ في الركعة الأولى من 3 الوتر سبح اسم ربك الأعلى، وفي الثانية قل يا أيها الكافرون، وفي الثالثة قل هو الله أحد، ويضيف إليه أحيانا قل أعوذ برب الفلق وقل أعوذ برب الناس. وقد صح عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قرأ بمرة مرة في ركعة الوتر ب100 آية من النساء. All right, so what is recommended with regards to the last 3 raka'at of Witr? It's well known, alhamdulillah. I believe that most imams today, they preserve this sunnah with regards to Sabbih isma rabbika al-a'la, Qul a'udhu bi rabbil, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, and Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. Also, al-Ikhlas, as we just mentioned, al-Falaq and al-Nas, the author says, ahyanan. رواه النسائي وأحمد بسند صحيح. And the proof for that is found in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad and the Sunnah of Imam al-Nasai with an authentic chain of narration. It's also been reported, it's also been reported, he says, is that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would occasionally recite Surah An-Nisa in the Witr. Surah An-Nisa. And that's the hadith that is collected by Imam Ahmad and collected by Imam al-Nasai with an authentic chain of narration. And it shows us once again, he says, bi-mi'ati ayah, 100 verses from An-Nisa. And it shows us, as we've stated before, that the recitation is to be diversified. There is no one way that you must do or you must stick to. It's open, it is optional, sometimes short and easy upon the people, and sometimes lengthy. 100 verses from An-Nisa. All right, tayyib. Moving forward. Next section he says, Dua al-Qunut wa mawdi'uhu. وبعد الفراغ من القراءة وقبل الركوع يقنط أحيانا بالدعاء الذي علمه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سبطه الحسن بن علي رضي الله عنهما، وهو اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافني فيمن عافيت وتولني فيمن توليت وبارك لي فيما أعطيت وقني شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يضل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت لا منج منك إلا إليك. ويصلي على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أحيانا لما يأتي بعده، ولا بأس من جعل القنوت بعد الركوع، ومن الزيادة عليه بلعن الكفرة والصلاة على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء للمسلمين في النصف الثاني من رمضان لثبوت ذلك عن الأئمة في عهد عمر رضي الله عنه، فقد جاء في آخر حديث عبد الرحمن بن عبد القاري المتقدم وكانوا يلعنون الكفرة في النصف اللهم قاتل الكفرة الذين يصدون عن سبيلك ويكذبون رسلك ولا يؤمنون بوعدك وخالف بين كلمتهم وألقي في قلوبهم الرعب وألقي عليهم رجزك وعذابك إله الحق. ثم يصلي على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ويدعو للمسلمين بما استطاع من خير ثم يستغفر للمؤمنين. قال وكان يقول إذا فرغ من لعنه الكفرة والصلاة على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم واستغفاره للمؤمنين والمؤمنات ومسألته اللهم إياك نعبد ولك نصلي ونسجد وإليك نسعى ونحفد ونرجو رحمتك ربنا ونخاف عذابك الجد إن عذابك لمن عاديت ملحق ثم يكبر ويهوي ساجدا. Okay, Dua al-Qunut. What is the supplication or the supplications that can and should be made when you make Qunut? And when we learn that which is correct, we have the ability to see some of what is incorrect with regards to normal practices among the different imams. Point number 15, and obviously al-Qunut is one of the last things, not the last, but one of the last things you're going to do in your witr. So from one aspect, one can look at it as if it's a crown jewel, as if it's the icing on the cake, the cherry on top. It's one of the last major parts of supplication that everyone is making together. In the tashahhud, the imam is supposed to make dua for himself, for the people, for the Muslims. However, one of the last places that the dua is going to be made together is in the dua of the Qunut. Okay. The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, point number 15, and after one is done with the recitation, وَبَعْدَ الْفَرَاغِ مِنَ الْقِرَاءَةِ وَقَبَلَ الرُّكُوعِ. When a person has done the recitation and before the ruku', he says, قَبَلَ الرُّكُوعِ, before, يَقْنُتُ أَحْيَانًا بِالدُّعَاءِ. The imam or the imams can and should occasionally make the qunut. He says ahyanan, and he doesn't say every single night. Ahyanan, occasionally. And he should make the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught his grandson, Al-Hasan ibn Ali radiyallahu anhuma. And that dua was, Allahumma ihdini fi man hadait. Oh Allah, guide me, keep me guided, make me guided among those whom you've already guided. And this part of the dua should show us the importance of being with the believers and with Ahlul Iman and Ahlul Khair. And at the head of the believers and the head of the people of goodness should be the people of knowledge. So you want to be guided along with those people. You want to be in their company. You want to be with them physically and the guidance metaphysically as well. Allahumma hdini fi man hadayta. You've guided this one and that one, make me among them. Oh Allah, you have the ability to take the one who's dead and turn him into someone who's living, as the Quran says. Guide me. A person isn't that bad off, isn't that worse off if this person was a kafir and then he's a mu'min. وَعَافِنِي فِي مَنْ عَفَيْتَ. And protect me. Give me well-being. Give me pardoning. Keep me safe among those whom you've done that, the afiyah. You've given them the afiyah. وَتَوَلَّنِي فِي مَنْ تَوَلَّيْتَ. And make me one of your walis. Make me one of your friends, one of your protected and chosen servants. وَبَارِكْ لِي فِي مَا أَعْطَيْتَ. And bless me and what you have given me. Give me goodness and an abundance of that goodness and a consistency of that goodness concerning my wife, my children, my health, my money, my business, etc. وَقِنِي شَرَّ مَا قَضَيْتَ. And protect me of the evil that you have decreed. Protect me of the evil that you have destined and willed, and not your evil decree. Because none of Allah's decree is evil. But there are things that Allah has made and created and placed into existence which contain evil and negativity. So just look at the beautiful nature of this dua. The connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the need, the begging of Allah and no one else. And acknowledging that all good comes from Allah. And acknowledging that when people suffer and when they're miserable and when they go through calamities and afflictions, it's because Allah has decreed it. So this is the core essence of Islam. The core essence. Ad-du'a'u mukhul ibadah. The dua being the bone marrow of worship. Ad-du'a'u hul ibadah. Dua itself is the ibadah. So the connection and the relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many people they don't call upon Him. Many people they call upon other than Him. Something else, they have to get some other type of spirituality. Because the normal orthodox traditional sources don't give enough spirituality. It's not enough just to have Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim for spirituality. We have to do something else. We have to do something extra. Have you ever read this supplication? This is the core, this is spirituality in itself. Guide me, protect me, bless me, make me your wali. So it shows us is that beneficial knowledge of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ gives you everything that you need and you can possibly want. And there is no need and no time for anything else. There's no need for it. There's no need for no new or different type of system. Whatever name is given to it, there's no need for it. It's right here. The hadith then states, فَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ. For indeed you, Allah, you decree, you will, you destine things. وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ. And no one tells you what it's going to be and how it's going to be. No one makes things and decrees things and mandates those things upon you. إِنَّهُ لَا يَذِلُّ مَنْ وَلَيْتَ. Your walis, they're never ever humiliated and disgraced. Never. The one whom you have taken as a friend is never humiliated and debased. Never. لَا يَذِلُّ مَنْ وَلَيْتَ. Stop and think about that now. You can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. There's no way you can humiliate me. You can't win. I have my honor. I have my self-pride, my respect. You can't take it away from me, no matter what you do. You can strip me of my clothes. You can take my home. You can do this, but you can't ever humiliate me. And this is something that the kuffar can never, ever comprehend and understand. And it's something, unfortunately, that many Muslims themselves have failed to comprehend and to understand. And the opposite of that is true as well. وَلَا يَعِزُّ مَنْ عَدَيْتَ. And whom you've taken an enemy, those whom you've taken as an enemy, they can never ever have might and power. They can never have dignity. They can never have any type of izzah, any type of respect. Tabarakta Rabbana wa ta'alita. O Allah, our Lord, indeed you are full of goodness and blessings. Wa ta'alita. And you are exalted and esteemed. La manja minka illa ilayk. No one can escape. No one can run away from you and hide from you unless they run towards you. It's the only way that they can be protected from you is they seek protection in you. وَيُصَلِّ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ أَحْيَانًا لِمَا يَأْتِي بَعْدَهُ. And occasionally the Imam should send prayers and salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's going to mention the hadith in the next point, point number 16, why. So, is it haram to go beyond this dua? Do you have to stop here? You can't say anything more than this? What's for sure, what we can all agree upon is this what the Prophet taught Hassan ibn Ali. Just like the 11 rak'at. This is what he actually did and what he actually gave. So the best thing is to suffice yourself in your dua with what was mentioned. And there's more. وَلَا بَأْسَ. He says, and there's nothing wrong with making qunut after ruku'. So according to the author, the default of the qunut should be when? Before, and not after. Before. وَلَا بَأْسَ. And it's okay to do it what? After. But that's not what he started off with. His opinion, his research, the hadiths, their number, their authenticity, what he did in most cases was qabal, before ruku', before, point 15. Then point 16 he says, and there's nothing wrong with doing it, what? Clear on this or not? Moving forward. من الزيادة عليه بلعن الكفرة. Now listen very carefully to this point now. 16 he says, ولا بأس من جعل القنوت بعد الركوع ومن الزيادة عليه بلعن الكافرين. The following two things are also permissible. Number one, to make the qunut after ruku' and to go past what was mentioned, such as sending curses upon the kuffar, the kafirin. And this should show us, as we've stated many times before, no matter how much you try to avoid talking about jihad fi sabilillah, it's a taboo concept. It's a taboo term. You can't even mention it in the khutbah. Don't even say the word. Don't even use the jim, the letter jim. If you're studying and you're trying to practice Islam from the authentic sources, you're going to be a fundamentalist. And there's no way you can avoid it. And you can never ever fully please them. You can escape and run. Oh, don't talk about it. Don't mention it. We don't hate the kuffar. That's extreme. That's fundamentalist. Okay, tayyib. We're talking about salat right now. We're talking about prayer right now. We're not talking about fighting in the cause of Allah. And he says, Bila'an al-kafirin. Asking Allah to do what? Curse them. How is that tolerant and modern and progressive? Isn't that fundamentalist? So you can't escape it. And that's the whole point. Taking that outside of Islam, that is the floodgates. Once they get you to be allergic to that, then they continue to what? Infringe upon it. Don't say this, don't do that, that's extreme, don't mention that. But there's nothing wrong with you just saying the words, that's fine. Just don't translate them. Or if you translate them, don't explain them. Or if you explain them, don't ponder on them. Don't make any relative, real life connections to them. So it's a very dangerous state in which we're living in, unfortunately. Moving forward, the Shaykh Rahimahullah Ta'ala, he says, asking Allah to curse, la'an al-kafara, to curse them. And sending prayers upon the Prophet ﷺ, and making dua for the Muslims. في النصف الثاني من Ramadan, in the second half of Ramadan. And not the what? First half. But he said the what? The second half. النصف الثاني. The second half. The remaining 15 days or 14 days. لثبوت ذلك. And this has been authentically reported. عن الأئمة. He says the imams of the Salaf, the imams of the Sahaba in the time of Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, as is mentioned on page 26 and page 27 from the hadith of Abdurrahman ibn Abd al-Qari. He says, وَكَانُوا Umar radiyallahu anhu and all of Umar's imams, وَكَانُوا, they used to يَلْعَنُونَ الْكَفَرَةَ. They would curse the infidels. I don't know a better translation. Maybe it's a wrong translation. يَلْعَلُونَ الْكَفَرَةَ. They would ask Allah to do what? To curse them, the kafara. Those who are upon kufr. في النصف, in the second half. And they would say, Allahumma qatil al-kafara. Oh Allah. I don't know if we even want to translate that. Huh? Okay. Maybe too, we don't want to get people into more trouble, or we get into more trouble. Okay? Al-Muhim, once again, if you're talking about marriage, you're going to come across some type of uncomfortable, fundamentalist discussion. If you're talking about salah, zakat, nothing violent, it's because it's all what? You try to take this and remove this and water this down and shave this off, it's not going to go anywhere. So the supplication, it says, Allahumma qatil al-kafara alladhina yasudduna an sabilika. Oh Allah, curse the faith rejectors, the infidels, the kuffar, those who hinder men from your path, who keep men from your path, from preventing people from submitting and believing and submitting to you. Yasudduna an sabilika. Wa yukadhibuna rusuluka. And those who belie your messengers, make fun of your messengers, reject your messengers. وَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِوَعْدِكَ. Nor do they believe in your promise. وَخَالِفْ بَيْنَ كَلِمَتِهِمْ. Separate them, split them up, cause them to hate each other, to fight each other, to be disunified and not to unify. وَأَلْقِي فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الرُّعْبَةِ. And cast fear into their hearts. Cause them to be scared and terrified. وَأَلْقِي عَلَيْهِمْ رِجْزَكَ وَعَذَابَكَ إِلَهَ الْحَقِّ. Oh Allah, you are the God of truth, the true God. Send down your punishment. Rain down upon them your wrath. And subhanAllah, just look and stop. Think about the media right now. All of the woes, all of the evils in the world today, may Allah help all of us. Why would a president, or why would a spokesperson of a president, or why would a prime minister continue to use the same word and the same term? All hell, 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 hell. Coming from a secular system of government and a secular world that separates church and state. Why are we even using the word hell? Isn't hell pertaining to spirituality and religion? Isn't hell a mythical place? Paradise, heaven is a mythical place. Adam and Eve are mythical beings. Myth meaning belief, mythology, your aqidah. That has nothing to do with actual secular politics. So why do you continue to threaten people with hell and all hell is going to break loose? As if a person, it's not as if, we know this. A person is cursed, a people are cursed, and they know that they're cursed. They've rejected the truth out of envy and pride. They know that they're cursed, and they want to imitate and mimic Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Pharaoh did. Ana rabbukumul a'la. I'm your Lord Most High. So hell is in the hands of who? Christian is going to say, God. A real Jew is going to say, etc. That type of punishment is in the hands of the what? But I am going to act as if I have that power and that authority. Just stop and think about that now. In Ramadan, all hell is going to break loose. And that hell is in my hand. I have the ability and the power to lift up the switch and press the button and release fire and brimstone upon you. Think about that. It should be a wake-up call for all Muslims. And they know that they're going to Jahannam. They know that they're cursed. And they know that all they have is this world at best. Nothing more. They know this. So you look at the different Quranic reflections, how Pharaoh wanted to build a stairway to heaven, how he wanted to act as if he was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though he knew that he wasn't. Musa said to him, لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ. Indeed, you know, no one sent down but Rabbu samawati wal ard, the Lord of the heavens and earth. You know this, Pharaoh. You know that. I know that you know that you're lying, that you really don't believe what you're saying. And what the hell can you send down that you already haven't sent down? You wouldn't kill people? You've done that. Wound people, put shrapnel on babies' chests and heads, amputees. That's been done. People's legs have been amputated with no anesthesia. That's what? That's old. What can you do? Destroy the infrastructure? Blow up a hospital? Destroy a water plant? You've done all of that. What can you do now that you already haven't done? What hell? We have a secret, special hell that we're going to release upon you. If you don't take exactly what we're telling you to take, what we're forcing upon you, what hell do you have that we haven't seen? So in dua, in Ramadan, when we make these du'as, we should think, we should ponder, we should reflect. Allahumma musta'an. May Allah help the Muslims and what's going on in the world today. Allahumma musta'an. He then says, وَكَانَ يَقُولُ إِذَا فَرَقَ مِنْ لَعْنِهِ الْكَفَرَ وَالصَّلَاةِ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم وَاسْتِغْفَارِهِ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَمَسْأَلَتِهِ. And after he finished cursing the infidels and sending prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asking Allah to forgive him for the believers, male and female, he would say, Allahumma iyyaka na'bud. Oh Allah, you alone we worship. Wa nusalli wa nasjud. And he would continue to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ما يقول في آخر الوتر ومن السنة أن يقول في آخر وتره قبل السلام أو بعده اللهم إني أعوذ برضاك من سخطك وبمعافاتك من عقوبتك وأعوذ بك منك لا أحصي الثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. وإذا سلم من الوتر قال سبحان الملك القدوس سبحان الملك القدوس سبحان الملك القدوس ثلاثا ويمد بها صوته ويرفع في الثالثة. He mentions more supplications in point number 17 and the end of the witr, things that should be said. And that hadith, Allahumma inni a'udhu bi ridaka min Oh Allah, I seek refuge in your good pleasure from your wrath. Obviously, this affirms Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sifat. Affirms his attributes. Khair, inshallah, we'll stop here tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Are there any questions from the brothers or the sisters? Jazakallah khair, and we'll take them now. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl Nafis.
The other day we were speaking about, we asked a question about buying and selling inside the masjid.
Salam.
If it's for the masjid or if it's items being sold that to benefit the masjid. What's the ruling on that? If it's non-profit or it's for profit, Allah.
Question is regarding buying or selling things inside of the masjid for the sake of the masjid. The answer that I gave the other day was that should be avoided. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't feel comfortable in doing it. It's the safest thing to do. Even though it's not for personal profit and it's not for personal gain, it may be a necessity. The funds have to be raised for the masjid, for the maintenance of the masjid, for the masjid's lights to remain on, etc., etc. People eat, the food isn't free, etc., etc. However, the masjid turning into a marketplace, or as he said, a fish market. Masjid turns into just a social, in which the sacredness and the sanctity of the masjid is lost piece by piece. You infringe upon it until what's left? It's just a building with carpet inside. In reality, that's all it is. You do this, you say this, you do that. Nothing is sacred, nothing is off limits. And everything is a necessity. We have to make this, we have to. So I would say it's best to avoid that. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
From the Sunnah of giving Zakat al-Fitr, it is recommended to give the grain or the staple food of the community. What is the proof that many organizations are using the $10 or $5, $15 per person? Can you clarify this difference between what is recommended in Sunnah and what is being practiced?
Understood. Jazakallah khairan. Tayyib. Well, it's not just necessarily the Sunnah. Many scholars, if not most of them, say that that's what's mandatory. Obviously, Sunnah is mandatory too, but we're talking about the terminology of the people. So many scholars, if not most of them, they say that it is invalid to give Zakat al-Fitr in cash. Most scholars say that it's invalid, and it must be given in food stuff. It must be given in something which can be preserved and something which is staple, which will prevent famine. What proof do the different organizations use? They're not making something up. It isn't a bid'ah. It isn't an opinion that's out of thin air. Many of the Salaf al-Salih, they held the view that you can give Zakat al-Fitr with money. And the proof that they used was looking at the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. The letter of the law says grain, says dates, dried yogurt, cottage cheese, aqit. And the spirit of the law is, the purpose of Zakat al-Fitr is to do what? Remove hunger, prevent hunger, keep the people from being hungry and depressed and sad on that day. So therefore, if I give this poor person some grain not to be hungry on the day of Eid, me giving him money is even more. Okay, so many of the ulama of the past, they had this view, is that it's permissible to give Zakat al-Fitr with money and with cash. Secondly, obviously, if I have an organization, and this is not a shot at anybody, I'm just stating the facts. If I have an organization, I have staff, I have a secretary, I have this and I have that. I'm in constant need of what? Money. It's a fact. Nothing is free. Paying this, paying that, we need money. It's a pool, it's a system. Paying for the people, so on and so forth. So it only makes sense for you to give zakat in money and give it to us. And that's not necessarily a what? Bad thing. The lights don't come on by you smiling. That's the reality. People, how expensive it is to travel. Driving on the tri-state, right? The turnpike, how much money for gas and for tolls? The Gothels, the Verrazano, it costs money. Nothing is free. There are expenses. So therefore, me personally, I personally believe, I take the view, is that it is lawful to give Zakat al-Fitr in money. It's lawful. But as you mentioned, it's not the Sunnah. It's not the starting point. You should give the grain, the food stuff yourself. And there are wisdoms behind that. And from the wisdoms behind that is that giving Zakat al-Fitr in money and cash it causes most people to be lazy. And that is a fact. It's a fact. Put it in an envelope, dump it in a box. I've done my job. Versus I'm going to the market, how many people I have? Fulan, my wife is pregnant, this one in my house. I have 6 people that are beneficiaries, 7 people that I take care of, 4 people, 3 people, just me and my wife. My kids, they left. I'm an empty nesting parent. Calculating the heads that you have, calculating the grain, taking the grain. Eid Mubarak, this is from my family. So we live in a fast-paced world, a quick, ready-made world, a drive-through world, a microwave world, in which we want everything to be convenient and easy and simple, including Islamic rulings. So I think that's dangerous. For argument's sake, you don't have time. For argument's sake, you live in an affluent community, it's difficult. Maybe, la bas. But many people, they're just avoiding the actual task of giving out the zakat, which is unfortunate. So therefore, in brief, as we have stated, scholars of Islam, they differ on this issue. Those who say that you can give zakat al-Fitr the money, it is not something which is baseless. It's not something that's made up. It's not something that's going against the ulama. The ulama who hold that view from the Salaf al-Salih. And they have a reasoning for that. But it's best and safest to do what? To give it in food stuff. And of course, which is even better than that, is you give it in food stuff and you also give an envelope. But that's another problem, which is I only have to give $10. And that causes a person to be a little tight-fisted. May Allah make it easy for us all. I mean, obviously there's exploitation that exists in the different masjids, the financial institutions, the charitable institutions. I mean, dunya is dunya. You can't be a pious imam and a businessman full-time, both. One of the two has to what? You can be part-time maybe, but not what? Allah musta'an, may Allah help us all. Fadal.
About the Witr prayer, what is recommended? What would you say for us to do in this time and day?
First and foremost, we can't be fighting. Fighting is against the teachings of Islam, the Quran and the Sunnah. Don't differ, don't fight, don't bicker, don't argue. So there's no reason why we should be fighting over fiqh issues. All right? We have to stay away from that. It's optional, as we've just read. And it's just one book. Just one book. This is a summarized work. Right? So it's just that simple. Wallahu a'lam.
Initials AM from Augusta, Georgia. My question is there a limit on how many times I have to forgive and be kind to an abusive parent that I have to live with due to me being disabled? Can I at least verbally defend myself?
If you have parents which are abusive or have abused you, is there a limit or a time in which you can and cannot forgive, so on and so forth? They're your parents. So math shouldn't come into the equation. That's your mother, that's your father. You can never repay them for what they did for you. As far as defending yourself, you're allowed to defend yourself against anyone who's wronging you and oppressing you. And oftentimes, by you defending yourself, you're doing a favor for the person that's wronging you. I'm doing you a favor by reminding you that what you're doing is a major sin. It's haram. You can't do this. Even though you're my mother, you're my father. I love you and I want you to go to Jannah. I'm telling you that you have to stop. Wallahu a'lam. Jazakallah khairan. We'll stop here. Fadal.
Arhus, Denmark. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. When do you think is later for Qadr?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When do I think Laylatul Qadr is? It's a good question. That's there now?
No,
That's somebody's phone? At the end of the day, Sheikh, if you remember, we mentioned a khutbah about إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ الشَّهْرِ. Next verse. تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالْرُوحُ فِيهَا بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ أَمْرٍ سَلَامٌ هِيَ. So if you count the words in Surah Al-Qadr, many scholars have said that the 27th word of the surah is here, which means it is. So many scholars, they say it's the 27th. We read in Sheikh Albani's book that it's the what? We'll stop here. Wallahu a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasulih. I don't think we got any more time. We got more time? It's done, right, Muhammad? Yeah. It's time. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.